What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Here we are with another reaction video, and in this one we have India is third most powerful country. Great Britain is no longer great. What a bold statement, but I think the world might be in agreement. It may be falling from its power. Now, I know this was a very short video. We are gonna do two videos wrapped into one. So make sure you stick around. But before we dive into this, if you would like to support the channel by becoming a member, all you gotta do is hit that join button below to receive exclusive benefits that I know you guys will enjoy. But without further ado, let's find out what he's got to say.
Let me begin by asking you an undiplomatic question. You just wrote a column in the FT, and for many India watchers and of course Indians here, it was very interesting because you proposed that the UK should actually give up its place on the UN Security Council for India. Why did you say that, and what was the reasoning behind that strongly worded article?
Well, I can tell you that this is not rocket science. This is just plain common sense.
Oh.
You know, I was ambassador to the UN twice, from 84 to 89 and 98 to 2004. And it's very clear that when the founders of the UN, created the UN, they realized that the only way to make the United Nations work is to make sure that all the great powers of the day have a vested interest in the UN and not leave it. And that's why they gave the great powers, veto powers, and permanent membership of the UN Security Council. Okay. And I can say that the lesson that they learned from the collapse of the League of Nations early in the 20th century is that if a great power leaves, organization collapses. But they also believed that you must have the great powers of today, not the great powers of yesterday. Unfortunately, they didn't create a mechanism for changing the seats. But that was very clear that what they had in mind was to ensure that the great powers of the day were entrenched in the United Nations. And
dang, that's kind of crazy. So the great powers in the United Nations have veto power, and they have permanent membership. Is that what he said? They gave these great powers vested interests. However, they didn't mean just those great powers of the day. Back in the day, they mean like the great powers of today. And he's saying, you look at the great powers of today, it's only common sense. It's not rocket science that India is the third most powerful country. So, Great Britain, UK should give up their seat to India. What y'all think about that? Do y'all think the UK would do something like that? If the UK did do that, how would it benefit the UK? But then again, if India left the United Nations, how badly would that hurt? Oh, this is a good question, or this is a good proposal that he's bringing up, because his argument does make sense. It does make sense, and I'll let him continue it.
To ensure that the great powers of the day were entrenched in the United Nations. And today is just absolutely no question that India is the third most powerful country in the world after United States and China. And Great Britain is no longer great. And frankly, the United Kingdom has effectively given up its veto on the UN Security Council because it hasn't used it for decades. They know that if they use it, people get very, very upset. So the logical thing to do is for the UK to give up its seat to India.
So he's saying y'all ain't even using your veto power, so you may as well not even have it. So the only logical thing to do is give up your seat to India. Oh, shoot. We're about to go ahead and dive into the second video, though. And here we go.
You've made that point in other, in your essays, etc., that this whole, in a sense, the West having lost control of the world. the crisis of leadership in the West, and how the global South and the whole shift of power is really what's going to define geopolitics, not just now, but in the decades and century to come. You, of course, have written extensively on the Asian century. Many observers have said that this could be the Indian century. Tell us why you think the West is in a crisis of, say, leadership, geopolitical strategy, and why you think there's been this shift of balance of power.
Well, the West clearly has got to accept that its capacity to dominate the world in the way that it could in the past is over. I mean, it's hard to believe this, right, Sonia? 100 years ago, in the year 1924, 100,000 Englishmen could rule over 300 million of our ancestors.
Indians. That is insane to think
about. I find
about.
that quite amazing.
That is wild.
100,000 Englishmen?
I do have to agree with them. I mean, when you think about the numbers, that's absolutely insane. And I also agree with them on the statement of the West can't dominate the rest of the world like it used to in the past. You see these other countries growing. You see them rising economically and strengthened military. And you see this rise in, West can't just throw its weight around and say this is how things are going to go anymore and just run things. Like, no. These countries in Asia, these countries in the South now are like, hey, we're going to do what we want to do. We powerful on our own. So, y'all ain't just going to throw y'all weight around and tell us what to do. So, yeah, he's right in the terms of, the West can't just dictate what the entire world does anymore.
Ruling 300 million Indians? How is that possible? But it happened. It was real. The West was just so incredibly powerful. But the world has come full circle now. And the West now represents 12% of the world's population. The rest make up 88%. And I already illustrated by comparing Europe's GNP with China's GNP. The relative share of the GNP of the Western countries is going down. Let me give you another comparison. Okay, in the year 2000, roughly around then, the combined GNP of the G7 countries, representing the West, was 2.5 times bigger than the BRICS countries in PPP terms. Now G7 is smaller than BRICS. See, that's how times have changed. So the intelligent thing for the West to do is to adapt intelligently and thoughtfully. And I must emphasize, I don't speak here as an enemy of the West. I speak here as a friend of the West, trying to persuade both the Europe and United States that it would be wiser for them to share power, to share control of international institutions with the countries of the global South.
Now, me personally, I completely agree with him. I think he makes complete sense. That why would you not adjust to times of today where you see the global South rising right now and share that power? But me knowing who the U.S. is, knowing who Europe is, I do not see them willingly sharing that power. You have all this power. You're not going to willingly give it up. You should. It only makes sense. I think you should adjust. I think you should be smart and do what benefits everyone. But I don't see them willingly sharing that power, unfortunately. So let's hear what he's got to say. I agree with you, my guy. You make sense to me.
Institutions with the countries of the global South. And, for example, why do we have this absurd rule that says that to become the head of the IMF, you must be a European. To become the head of the World Bank, you must be an American citizen. Why not allow Asians to run these institutions? Because the fastest growing economies in the world are not European, not American, but Asian economies. True. So these are examples of how we must adapt to the 21st century. And the 21st century, I want to emphasize, will be the Asian century. because it'll be the rise of not just China and India, but other Asian powers too. And I want one
Oh.
small point I'd like to make here is that Indians should pay special attention to Southeast Asia, to the 10 ASEAN countries. Because, 9 out of the 10 Southeast Asian countries have an Indic base in their culture. For 2,000 years, India has been very close to Southeast Asia. And Southeast Asia is emerging as a major growth pole in the world also. And I'll just give you one more statistic
Sure.
that I think every Indian should be aware of.
This is just very interesting. First of all, please tell me how you guys feel about the comments that he made in the first video. Great Britain isn't so great anymore. They should give up their seat to India. Second video, the West should share that power because they cannot dominate the rest of the world like they used to in the past. They only make up 12% of the world's population. So to me, he's right. It only makes sense to share that power. Should Great Britain give up its seat? Probably. Probably. India seems like they probably should get that seat. But will they give up that seat? Probably not. I don't know. I guess we'll have to see later down the line. But, I mean, it's not like he's just making insane statements. The statements that he's making, once he breaks them down, they do make sense to me. I do fully understand them. So please tell me how you guys feel. And if you enjoyed that, do not forget to subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, and check out that next video. I'll see you guys next time.